All right, we are not doing a blog after all. We are doing a YouTube. Thank you to Jasmine and Mara. Hi everyone. Welcome to Fiberdose episode 1. It took me a while to decide on that name, but I hope you like it. In my head, it's like a dose of fiber. Anyway, welcome to Fiberdose. Okay, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about where I've been. I plan to be completely transparent with y'all and just kind of share. I mean, I feel like if I'm going to be making videos and expecting people to connect to me, then I should probably share, more, be transparent. So I used to do Instagram quite a bit more than I do now. I had my own brand called Hello Gavriella. I still have it technically. It's just not the scale that it used to be. So in 2019, my brand grew beyond the capacity that I was able to handle, and it became a lot. And I was trying to work on a bigger scale, doing the same things I was doing on a smaller scale, if that makes sense. So I was still trying to do the production line of stuff, of making things, and creating listings, doing all the admin, doing all the taxes, all that stuff. And I was doing it all on my own. And so when I went from having I think I had maybe 3,000 to 5,000 followers. And then all of a sudden in a span of a week, I had over 20,000 followers. That was a lot. And I don't feel like people talk about it enough, but when you're a brand and it's just you and you go from it being your full-time / part-time, I was a stay-at-home mom with a baby, 2 babies. Both of my sons were born in 2018. Story for another time. I was kind of just doing things as I could during nap time and, late at night when everyone was asleep. And then it went from me needing to work sometimes up to 20 hours a day. I'm not joking. It was really hard, it was really hard to try to keep up. And then I just eventually found that door was closing for me. I couldn't really handle it mentally because it wasn't exactly where I wanted to be. I love making things and I love sharing about them and connecting to the community, but I don't enjoy constantly running a full-time small business. It probably sounds like as backwards, but I'm just saying that I was mostly in it for the connections, creating new things, having that your creative juices flowing and enjoying, that. And it became like something where I found I was ignoring my kids a little bit more, my husband a little bit more. And I didn't want to have to hire anybody because it went from me just making things as I thought of them to me having to meet this deadline, having to meet the shipping deadline, and it was just a lot and I couldn't handle it. I ended up having a really big shipping issue, and it basically just showed me that God was like, girl, this door is closing. It's time to move on. And I don't really share that story a lot. I feel like a little bit shaky kind of being so vulnerable with you all, but I figure if we're here, we're here. And also, it led me to a new opportunity with Pom Pom Magazine. Now I run their social media accounts and do a lot more stuff behind the scenes, but it led me to a place where I had always envisioned myself. When I was about to graduate high school, maybe it was my junior year of high school, I remember the counselors, or what are they called? Those people that are like, here, you need to go to college, start applying, I remember they were trying to get me to pin down a major and figure out what I wanted to do. And I was like, well, I want to be in textile designs. And so I went to fashion and textile, a day at the University of Texas to kind of see if that's really what I wanted to do. And I remember just being blown away by the whole process. Well, fast forward 8 years, I didn't really do, not 8 years, fast forward 6 years. I didn't really do much of any kind of textile anything. I just decided I was going to go for paralegal just to get an associate's. And my major must have changed 20 times. Not really. They probably would have kicked me out at that point. But anyway, I decided to just stick with paralegal, and I just completely forgot that I even had that time in my life where I wanted to create clothes. I wanted to be a part of it somehow, but I never really knew how. And so, yeah, fast forward like 6, 7 years, I start teaching myself to knit, and I start getting more into crochet, and I'm like making hats, and I'm selling hats, chunky hats, and then all of a sudden I'm like, wait, you can make a sweater with yarn. Let's start making sweaters. So I'm like knitting sweaters, and then I'm like, wait, people design these. I'm going to start designing. That's really cool, because like I always tend to change something in any pattern that I buy. And that's kind of what led me to designing. And then that kind of moved forward. I started making stitch markers for my own stuff, because I'm just like, these little silver stitch markers, not cutting it, I need something cute. Because for me, anytime that I'm creating, it has to be an aesthetic. Like, I'm all about aesthetics, and not just my own aesthetic, but for me, I'm very neutral, which I'm changing up. I am changing up. You'll see more of that here in a little bit. But I'm more of a neutral person. And so I always like wanted something that like went with my aesthetic, because when I sit down to make with my hands, I connect to my work. Like, my stitch markers have to match my mood. My needles have to match my mood, or my hooks have to match my mood. The yarn color, I have to feel passionate if I'm even going to finish a project. I have to feel passionate about that color. And so it kind of led me to starting to make stitch markers, starting to make, what else did I make? I made some resin stuff, stitch markers, trinket trays, and eventually hooks. And just, yeah, that's basically a summary of my creative journey. And once I took that step back from doing things all on my own and realizing that a door was closing, that I needed to allow that door to close, God was telling me something, And I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do now, but I'm stepping back, I'm just going to let it happen. And then so I saw the posting for the job with Pom Pom, and I was like, oh, that sounds really, really cool. So I'm going to apply for it. I did. A few months later, ended up getting signed on with Pom Pom, and it's just been the best work experience I've ever had. And in this work environment, everyone's always so supportive. No one's like pressuring you too much. You know what you have to do, and it almost makes you want to work, if that makes sense. It makes you want to work as a team. It makes you want to help others on the team with whatever they're doing. It's really like you want to be there. Every day I wake up, I say this every Sunday night. I'm like, oh, I can't believe I have to work tomorrow. And then I'm just like, but I love my job. But like, I just can't believe that I didn't have a job where I worked for someone else for 5 years. But I couldn't even believe that I had a job to go to in the morning that I loved. That's what's crazy. That's the crazy part. Like, I wake up in the morning, I'm like, oh, I don't want to be awake because I'm not a morning person. Then once I get to my computer, I'm like, wow, another day of work. That sounds so lame. Some of you are going to be watching and say, she's lying. I'm not lying. It really is just like that fulfilling. And I'm a big believer of not coincidences so much, but of God has a path for everybody. And I feel like he's put me on my path, and he always brings me back. Sometimes I, straddle off, but he's like, girl, this is what I got for you. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's really cool. And yeah, so let's get talking more about fiber and kind of projects I have coming up. And I hope that you'll stick around. I am a rambler. I've always been told that I talk a lot. And I didn't think I'd be able to talk to the camera this much without anybody talking back. But here we are. So I really wanted to talk about how I got started designing for crochet recently. If you've seen my page or are familiar with my page at all, you'll see that there's a lot of crochet lately. And that's because I recently came into possession of a bunch of my great-grandma's crochet items. And so I know that if these were given to me like 20 years ago, 20 years ago, I probably wouldn't have been so interested. But they're really cool, and they have so much more meaning now. My grandma, not my great-grandma, my grandma was given these by her mother-in-law. And she didn't really care for them because at the time, I guess it wasn't her style, And so she just kind of like stored them safely. And then now that it's like 60 years later, 60 years later, she pulled them out and she was like, do you want any of these? Your great grandma gave them to me and I have them. And I was like, what? When she showed me the bag, it was like completely full of crocheted items and I was like blown away. It was me, my aunt, my grandma, and my mom. And I was really the only one that was like floored by everything she was pulling out. I have seen really like pretty crochet, but I have never seen it on a personal level where I knew of the maker and kind of the stories behind things like that. So it kind of got me started with my crochet journey again. I was just looking at these really intricate things. Here's the first one. This is a doily and it is stained. All of these I did wash, but this one's stained like right in the middle. And I thought that was actually a pretty cool, it probably doesn't look that cool on camera, but it's like stained in a pretty cool place because it almost looks like ombre. So anyway, here's the first one. And just look at how small these stitches are. We're starting small. We are starting small. Let me see. There we go. We're starting small with the items because they just keep getting bigger. And I won't take up too much of your time showing all of them. It's just the detail in all of these little hand crocheted items, just it literally blows me away. If you know it all, I am testing, or I just wrote my first crochet pattern and it's in testing. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But it's nothing compared to these stitches and this amount of detail. So just wanted to kind of share how cool are these. I don't even, if this is a doily, like what were doilies originally intended for? I don't know. And here's another doily. Look at all the doilies. Okay, oh, this one might actually be the same as the first one. I'm not sure. I feel like I'm supposed to be holding these up a little bit longer. So anyway, and then let me show you these bad boys. Because these things are gigantic. One, I'm going to actually have to just post a picture of it because it's way too big. But I think originally these were supposed to be tablecloths, is what my grandma told me. But to me, when I saw them, I immediately just thought circle shawl. So I've tried all these on and it has like a really pretty like super extra edging. And I've tried them on and they look amazing as circle shawls. And I don't know, just thinking about my grandma back in the day being like, I could never. If you know anything about my style, I'm the laziest knitter. I'm the laziest crocheter. Something that's going to take this much detail, I could never. I lose it. I guess my attention span isn't long enough for something like that. But I mean, I still admire these and I'm kind of like really excited to continue on my crochet journey after seeing these. Okay, here's the last one I'm going to show you. Sorry, I'm shaking the camera. This is the last one I'm going to show you, and it's probably my favorite because of some of the details that she added in here. So I'm going to hold it back so you can kind of see what's going on. Can you see there in the middle that it actually has like a house in trees? And it even has a fence. Oh my gosh, as I'm looking at it right now, I'm just like, whoa. And it says home, sweet home. I'm moving it so you can hopefully see that. But so my grandfather's last name on my mom's side, which was my great grandma, their last name is Della Rosa. And she has little rose details crocheted into this piece. Isn't that wild? I feel like someone's going to come on here and be like, that was a pattern written in the 1920s. I've seen it before. But I don't care. She made it. It's wild. See, there's another. Let me hold it up. Do you see the rose in the corner and it has like the leaves? Yo, that is wild to me. So anyway, this is my absolute favorite piece. And it's just so special that I can have something from a craftier generation before me And I'm just absolutely floored by all of these pieces. So I'm really enjoying those. But anyway, let's move on. So I mentioned I was going to show you, probably shouldn't show this right after I just showed you those super intricate pieces, but here is my newest pattern. It is called the Little Scarf. It's kind of like a little shawl. Do you see? It's so cute. And it's made with Kid Silk Haze, which is mohair. And it has these little delicate details. If you know anything about my designs and my style, I love like a feminine touch to things. Although I will say my patterns are unisex because I've seen them, or I guess let's just say universal, not just unisex, because I feel like that kind of narrows things down. We don't do that. Anyway, I've seen lots of different people from different backgrounds and make my patterns, and I just love that they can fit on everybody because my design process starts with what I want to see on my own body because I'm a big girl. I'm a 48-inch bust, maybe 49 now. And so I don't always like see patterns that are advertised on bigger bodies. And so I was like, well, if I know how to make my own clothes, I'm going to start designing for bigger bodies. And not that they don't have sizing for smaller bodies. I just appreciate a certain fit, length, and things like that on my bigger body. So I design for what I want to see. And then I kind of share those instructions through my patterns. So that's kind of like where I start is what would look good on me? What do I want to make for my own body right now? And so that's why sometimes I like to include a lot of delicate touches because I like to show that there's delicacy in bigger bodies. That made it sound like food related. It's not food related. I mean, it could be. But I'm just joking. But I'm just saying I like to see nice, flowy, airy, softer things on bigger bodies. And so that's what I do for myself. And this one is just a simple top-down shawl, and it can be worn like around your ponytail, something like that. I guess this is a bun, but it could be worn in your hair that way. It could be worn. I look like I'm gonna go to church. Oh my God, I'm just realizing my camera is mirrored. But anyway, you could tie it in your hair with your hair down like this. But my personal favorite way to wear it is tied around your neck. Something like this, like bandana style. I know I'd be able to do this a little bit better if I were in a mirror and not mirrored on my camera. But anyway, something off to the side a little bit like that. I really like the look of like the delicate, just like a little touch, something like that. So that's why I designed the little scarf. I thought it could be like the perfect spring companion for people. I even wrote that in the pattern because I really like people to know my process and how I think. So I always include an intro about whatever the pattern is and kind of tell a little bit more about the inspiration for it. So yeah, that's kicked off my crochet journey. And while I was in Houston, I actually got a poncho that was actually made by my great grandma as well. But the funny thing about that is that just 1 week before, I had texted my mom and I asked her, I said, hey mom, what happened to that pink poncho that you had given me like 15 years ago? And she was like, oh, I don't know. Because I gave it back because at the time I didn't want it. I was a selfish person. I didn't appreciate fiber the way I do now. I'll admit that. But I had asked her for it back because she had stored it somewhere and she was like, oh, I'll have to look for it. I'm not sure where it's at. It's in a box or something like that. And so I said, okay. She didn't find it. A week later, my aunt passed away. We all went to Houston to go to the funeral and services, things like that. And I was given a red poncho, the same exact poncho, because my great grandmother used to make things for all of her granddaughters, all of her daughter-in-laws, just different colors and different colors of the same pattern. And so I was just like, how weird is that now I'm receiving this poncho. I don't have it right next to me, but I'll post a picture or maybe link it somewhere. I don't know. I'll post a picture here or here so that you can reference what that looks like. And it was beautiful. It just, it wasn't in my color, which my aunt was also eyeing it. And I said, okay. I said, well, let me have the poncho for a little bit since it was given to me and I want to replicate it. And I'll also, fix it for you. That way you're able to use it. Okay. Sorry. He just wanted a hug, my son. So anyway. So I took that poncho and I recreated a version of it. And here is what it looks like. My grandma, as you could tell from the picture that I just showed, she makes things from all different levels. Like, it was wild. But this is more of a simple design that she had made. And I could not figure out how she connected the granny squares. I Googled everywhere to try to figure out how were these granny squares made, or I'm sorry, connected. And I was like, maybe lace stitch or something. I don't know. I'm not super well versed on crochet, but I am learning. And so I was like, well, I'm going to put them together a little bit differently, but the square is the same. I just looked at her work and tried to replicate it, but I actually ended up loving the result of this poncho. I still haven't weaved in my weaves. I haven't weaved in my ends. I used to always call them weaves. Like, I knew that they were called ends, but I still always called them the weaves. So anyway, if I say my weaves are hanging out, this is what I mean. But anyway, so I haven't weaved in the ends. But I'm really happy with the way that it looks. Like, I know ponchos are also really common, but I just connect so much more to this piece because it's like a replication of my grandma's work. So anyway, that's what I have going on in the crochet department. But I wanted to talk a little bit about some things that I'm working on knit-wise. So this is going to be a new design, and I'm not sure what I'm going to call it, but look at this color. If anybody gasped, I just want to show y'all because it's absolutely gorgeous. And it really reminds me of, what is it called? Cotton Candy Cowboy, which is a painting by, it reminds me of Cotton Candy Cowboy. It's a piece of art by Will Cotton. And I was introduced to Will Cotton through one of my coworkers at Pom Pom named Gail. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm a little bit nervous. It's my first episode. But anyway, my coworker Gail introduced me to that painting, and it was just so beautiful. It was so cotton candy. And I'll see if I can post a picture here so you know what I'm talking about. But these colors, immediately when I saw them, I was like, okay, I really want to make a chunky knit. And then when I came across these colors, I was like, wow, this is like Cotton Candy Cowboy all the way. So this is going to be a chunky knit project. And I'll probably give you details on this a little bit later because it's an idea I have for a little challenge that we can do together. And so maybe in episode 2, we'll actually have a finished sweater. Maybe. But I just want to kind of like highlight this yarn because it's so soft. And I just feel like acrylic yarn doesn't get enough credit for being used. I know that there's a lot of yarn snobs. That's just what they're called, but I wouldn't call them snobs. I feel like it's kind of ugly, but people who don't like acrylic yarns. And if it's for like a skin reason, great. But they are nowhere near being part of the horrific trend of fast fashion, just because I think that we all know that we all come from different budgets. We all have different budgets. We have different health issues. Some people are allergic to animal fibers. And I just think that there's a lot to be appreciated in acrylic yarns. And the fact that someone's making something with their hands at all should be appreciated. So I never shy away from acrylic yarns. And just to let you know, you will see all different kinds of acrylics on my page. You'll see indie brands, and I'll share all that with you, or indie dyed yarns. I'm just all across the scale. I appreciate a pretty color, and if the color is good, then I'm probably gonna get it if I have the money at the time, you know. But this is actually Lion Brand Scarfy, and I know that was a really long intro. I can't stop squishing it the whole time. Look at it. Did you see how big that skein was? And then it squishes down. Sometimes I get distracted by the little things like that. But anyway, it's so soft, and this is like still almost a full skein. And I believe this has about like 600 and no, not 600. I wish it had 600 yards, but no, this has about like 350 to 360 yards of yarn in it. And yeah, it's just 100% acrylic, and I love it. It is soft. It's one of the softest acrylics I've worked with. But all that to say that if you're a yarn snob, you're probably not going to like a lot of my yarn choices, because I kind of go with whatever is speaking to me at the moment. And I hope that my audience and community feels the same, or at least can understand that. So anyway, yeah, I'm super excited about it. One of my top complimented makes is my Ursa by Jacqueline Cieslek, and it's a really pretty like blush, soft, muted pink. And I get tons of comments every time I wear it. People are like, wow, the stitch definition on that is really nice. What yarn is it? Do you want to know? Do you want to know? I used to be really ashamed to tell people what it was made from because I was like, oh, there's so many like better yarns. But I understand the argument with big box brands and the income and stuff like that. So I totally get it. I'm just making sure you'll all know that not everybody has money for a $28 skein of yarn when you need like 4 of them to make a big girl top. So anyway, at the time I was at Joann's. It's Joann, I say Joann's, but I was at Joann, and I saw this really pretty yarn in the acrylic section. I think, no, they have things that are not acrylic, but this was in the acrylic section anyway. And it's actually Karen 1 pound. Believe it or not, it's Karen 1 pound, and it's one of the softest sweaters I have. I will say acrylic tends to get hot, so I don't wear it during the summer, but it's also like a sweater, so I don't wear sweaters here in Texas during the summer anyway. But I get so many compliments, and then now that I have no shame about the yarn I used or the yarn that I do use, I tell people, I'm like, believe it or not, it's Karen 1 pound, and people will like rub my arm while I'm wearing it, and they'll say, really? That's really soft. Because the thing people don't know about acrylic is that when you wash it, it gets softer. Also, they're machine washable. I have like, I don't know how many garments. I have a few garments that are made in acrylic, and they're the softest. They don't, some yarns do pill, but I mean, so do merinos and stuff like that, or merino. But yeah, they're like the softest knits I have. They don't shrink. They don't have a lot of dry time. I still don't put them in the dryer because that can damage the fibers. But yeah, so I just wanted to share that a little bit, let you know that maybe you have a sweater that was made from something that was a big box store brand, and good for you. If you made it yourself, good for you. And especially like, you know, when you're knitting stuff for like kids or stuff like that, you don't really, some people do, but you don't really want to gift something that was made with a super expensive yarn that may not be handled well, especially with kids or little babies. They throw up on stuff all the time, you know. So just an idea. If you have been shaming acrylic, don't do it. Anyway, I'm back. Sorry, I had to go find my next project, but I'll go ahead and wrap it up. So I realized when I went to get this next project that I actually have 2 projects that I have going on, and just for transparency, I want to share both of them. So this one here is in my Black Pearl Magic bag. Shout out to Shayla. I love her work so much. I recently just found out she's a Capricorn, and it makes sense why everything she posts like just speaks to me or is like completely hilarious, because there's a thing about Capricorns, okay? They're all very similar and like-minded, completely different people, but we all have some of the very same like humor and things like that. So I don't know. Shout out to Shayla. I love her bags and all of her work. I got this one at Rhinebeck this past year. I guess technically last year, the past Rhinebeck in 2022. And she was at the cake, is it called Cake Festival? The cake event at Rhinebeck, the separate event. She was there and she sold out. I am not joking, y'all. She sold out in like, I would say like 30 minutes, probably only because that's how long it took them to check everyone out. Like as soon as the doors open, I'm so glad we were in that first time slot because I didn't even know what like to expect at Rhinebeck. But thank God we were in that first time slot because I got this bag so fast. I just ran in. And if you were there, let me know in the comments. I sound like a YouTuber. Anyway, let me know in the comments if you were there at Cake and got a bag also, or if you also love her bags. This bag is pink, and I love how bright it is. I bet y'all didn't think this is my normal aesthetic. This is what Shayla did to me. It's so good. It's so good. I'm telling y'all, I love every shade of pink. And like the back is like, let me see. Can you see that? It's like a sparkly, ooh. It's a sparkly translucent. And I believe they're made of vinyl. And then the zipper, here, let me zip it back up so you can see. Don't break my needles now. The zipper is like rainbow. And it's such good quality. I love that I could take this and like set it down next to me if I need to and not worry if it's going to get wet, because you never knew that you needed a vinyl bag until you had one. And before I get to my next project, just since I'm on the subject of Black Pearl Magic, let me show you what else I got at Rhinebeck with my Black Pearl Magic bag. This, every time I look at it, like my heart skips a couple beats. This is more of my typical pink style, but look at this. I think she calls them needle binders, maybe. Look at it, even has the Black Pearl Magic like logo. It's so cute. It's so good. And see, it's also made with that same like translucent, sparkly color. And it's a needle holder. I love it. If you open it up, this is not paid. I paid for all of this. It's not paid. I paid. But anyway, it comes with these little flap folder things. Can you see that? And so I have my pom-pom stitch markers, and then I have like extra cords and all that stuff. And yeah, I just really love these two things. They make me happy anytime I pick them up. I'll zip that up in a second. But definitely support her. Her shop drops go pretty fast, but I'll ask her if she's going to be at the next Rhinebeck. Maybe I'll have an answer for you next time. So back to the projects. Okay. This is another brighter color for me, but hey, we are working on expanding. This is growth. This is growth, right? So this is just a cute little pink raglan. I'm going to make this short sleeve and cropped, kind of like my Ursa, just because I realized I really love that length. And so I'm going for the same thing. This is the Iris raglan from Ready Set Raglan from Pom Pom. And I love the simplicity of it and the neckline and everything. The only thing I did different with this was I just went ahead, where's the front? I just went ahead and casted on, starting with the number that's supposed to be for the neckline. I just am not a fan of picking up necklines. So I'm not even sure why do people do that? I keep wanting to ask them why they designed it that way. I don't know if it's for stability. I know a lot of times if you add, or if you pick up from like a cast on edge or something, it adds stability. So I don't know. And then I went ahead and did the short rows in the back. Oh, they're so good. You can't even see them. I bet you're like, girl, I can see them short rows. But they're German short rows. And I think that it came out really nice. But this is a pink acrylic. Sorry, y'all. I warned you. Before we got here, I warned you. And it has like specks of yellow and blue. And it's funny because when I went to the yarn store, this is going to be my project for the night. It's Friday. Probably not when you're watching this, but it's Friday. And I'm going to celebrate by knitting on this. So yeah, that's the next project I have. And now, last but not least, because I am airing it all out. Do you ever like have too many whips that you are just like, okay, if you cast one more on, might as well just frog the rest? I have a rule that if something takes me longer than 6 months to come back to, I frog the project and I just like store the yarn. Not like just store it out of the way, but like that project wasn't bringing me joy, and that means I'm no longer connected to it, so I get rid of it. Anyway, so here's the last project. This is going to be another design. Let me get this is made with the same yarn that I used for the little scarf. It's Kids Silk Haze by Rowan. And that first project, did I already mention? The little scarf uses just one single skein. So I think that's another really cool thing about it, is that it's super budget friendly. You could use scraps. If mohair isn't your thing, you could use like a lace weight yarn. And that's going to be the same idea with this. This is actually going to be the second companion project to that line. There's going to be 3 patterns that kind of go into that collection. And so this is the second one. And I'm not going to tell anyone what it's going to be outside of the YouTube because. But so I'll tell you though, this is going to be a round yoke top. And so this is what I have right now. And you see how it has like these little flutters. It's going to be a very simple top, but I decided that the detail for this was going to be like the waviness. It's almost like a ruffle. And I just think, like, if it comes out like it is in my head, it's going to be so gorgeous. It's just going to be a slight, like, airy ruffle. I hope that you can imagine it. So, hold on. This mic's going to make a lot of noise, but. So, like that. And then the arms. And it does fit over my head. I've tried. I know it might not look. I have a big head. But it might not look like it's going to fit over my head, but it does. And then it's also going to be cropped, and it's going to have a, like, flowiness to it, and that's going to be the detail. And the bottom edge will match the little scarf, and that's how they'll kind of like tie into each other. I really just wanted a very simple pattern because I feel like most of my knit patterns are very, they have texture, which I do love, but I don't have a lot of pieces that are just simple. So anyway, that's what I have, and this is where I say goodbye. Thank you for joining episode 1 of Fiber Dose with me, your host, Gavriella. I really appreciate you being here and listening to me talk. I told you I'm a rambler. But yeah, I appreciate you, and I hope to have these videos out bi-weekly, but max monthly. It just depends on my schedule of what I can do with the kids around. But anyway, yeah, I appreciate you being here, and I will see you next time. Bye.